The great chamber of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. The massive dome stretched high above the gathered representatives, its surface alive with the soft glow of distant nebulae, projected from 1,000 light-years away. 12 species had sent their most powerful leaders to this place, and now they sat in a perfect semicircle, watching and waiting for what was about to happen. "Hi!" Arbiter Zethel rose from his elevated seat at the center of the chamber. He was ancient even by the standards of his people, his pale blue skin marked with the ceremonial patterns of his office. In his 3-fingered hand, he held a staff made of pure crystalline energy, the symbol of his authority over this assembly. When he spoke, his voice carried to every corner of the room through translation devices that converted his words into the native language of each listener. "The motion has been called," he announced. "The species known as humanity, originating from the Sol system and the outer spiral arm, is hereby declared a threat to galactic peace and stability. All representatives will now cast their votes on the matter of immediate containment and neutralization." Ambassador Catherine Price stood alone on the human delegation platform. She was 52 years old, with silver streaks in her dark hair and lines around her eyes that spoke of decades spent in diplomatic service. She had known this day was coming for nearly 3 years now. The intelligence reports had been clear. The whispered conversations at trade summits had confirmed it. And yet, standing here in this moment, watching the representatives reach for their voting controls, she still felt a cold weight settle in her stomach. The first light turned red. The Velthari Dominion had voted in favor of the motion. Their representative, Councillor Thren, sat back in his chair with obvious satisfaction. He was an insectoid creature with segmented eyes that reflected the chamber lights. Like black mirrors, the second light turned red. The Cassian Collective had joined the vote against humanity. Then the Morthene Empire. Then the Galan Confederation, who'd normally abstain from such matters, but today had chosen to add their voice to the condemnation. One by one, the lights changed color, red after red after red, forming a glowing arc of judgment around the chamber. Catherine watched it happen with a stillness that confused many of the observers. They had expected fear. They had expected pleading. They had expected the desperate arguments of a species facing extinction. Instead, the human ambassador simply stood there, her hands folded in front of her, her expression unreadable. When the final vote was cast, Zethel turned to face her directly. "Ambassador Price, do you wish to speak before the motion is formalized?" "I do," Catherine said. Her voice was calm and carried easily through the chamber. "I would like to know the specific charges against my people." Councillor Thren leaned forward eagerly. He'd been pushing for this vote for over a decade, and now his moment had finally arrived. "The charges are simple, human. Your species expands too quickly. You adapt too readily. You consume resources at rates that threaten the balance of entire sectors. In 300 cycles, you have colonized more star systems than the Cassian Collective managed in 2000. You breed like parasites and spread like disease." "We call it determination," Catherine replied. "We call it the will to survive and grow. We call it extinction," Thren shot back. "Our extinction, if we do not act now to contain your spread. Every projection shows the same result. Within another 500 cycles, humanity will have expanded beyond any possibility of control. You will consume the galaxy." A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber. Catherine noticed that even the species who had traditionally been friendly to humanity were nodding along with Thren's words. The fear had spread everywhere. It had poisoned every relationship, every alliance, every treaty that humanity had worked so hard to build. "And so your solution is genocide," Catherine said quietly. Zethel raised his staff. "Not genocide, Ambassador. Containment. Your colonies will be dissolved, and their populations returned to Earth. Your homeworld will be placed under permanent quarantine. Your ships will be confined to your own system. You will be allowed to exist, but you will no longer be permitted to spread." "You are describing the slow death of our species," Catherine said. "Earth cannot support our current population. Without our colonies, billions will starve." "That is regrettable," Zethel said, and his voice held something that might have been genuine sympathy. But the Council must consider the greater good. One species cannot be allowed to threaten the survival of all others. Catherine looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each representative in turn. Some looked away. Others held her gaze with cold certainty. A few seemed uncomfortable with what was happening, but not uncomfortable enough to change their votes. "I want to make sure I understand correctly," she said. "This council, which humanity joined in good faith 30 years ago, has decided to condemn our entire species based on projections and fear. Not because of anything we have done, but because of what you believe we might do in the future. Your potential is the threat," Admiral Vexenar of the Morthine Empire spoke up. He was a massive creature, covered in thick gray plates, and his voice rumbled like distant thunder. "We have seen how quickly you advance. Your technology improves at rates we cannot match. Your population grows faster than any other known species. If we wait until you actually become a threat, it will be too late to stop you. So you will destroy us to be safe," Catherine said. "We will contain you to survive," Vexenar corrected. The chamber fell silent again. Zethal raised his staff once more, preparing to formalize the vote and make it galactic law. In moments, humanity would officially become outlaws, their colonies marked for destruction, their future erased by the unified will of 12 species. Catherine smiled. It was a small expression, barely visible from across the chamber, but several of the representatives noticed it. Councillor Thren's segmented eyes narrowed with suspicion. Admiral Vexenar shifted his massive bulk uneasily. "High Arbiter," Catherine said. "I want to thank this council for making its position so clear. It confirms what many of us suspected but hoped was not true. We are not welcome in this galaxy. We never were. You tolerated us while we were weak, and now that we have grown strong, you seek to cut us down." "Your words change nothing," Zethal said. "The vote has been cast." "You're absolutely right," Catherine agreed. "The vote has been cast. But I want you to remember this moment, all of you. Remember that you had a choice. You could have chosen trust. You could have chosen cooperation. You could have chosen to see humanity as partners rather than parasites. Instead, you chose fear." She reached down and touched a device on her wrist, a simple band of metal that none of the security scans had flagged as dangerous. "You should have voted 3 years ago," she said softly. "It is already too late." Before anyone could respond, before the guards could move or the counselors could cry out, Catherine Price vanished. She did not walk out of the chamber. She did not flee through any door. She simply disappeared in a shimmer of blue light, there one moment and gone the next. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted questions. Guards rushed to the empty platform. Zethal struck his staff against the floor again and again, demanding order, but Catherine Price was already gone. Carried away by technology that no species in the galaxy had ever seen before, and somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, the stars stretched across the view screen like scattered diamonds on black velvet. Commander Daniel Hayes stood at the center of the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back, watching the light of distant suns blur past at speeds that would have seemed impossible just 5 years ago. He was 43 years old, with short brown hair that was starting to show traces of gray at the temples and a face that carried the weight of too many difficult decisions. The carrier Resilience was one of the largest ships humanity had ever built, but it was not listed in any official registry. No alien species knew of its existence. No trade partner had ever seen its design. It was a ghost ship, part of a ghost fleet, serving a ghost nation that had been growing in secret for nearly a decade. "Status report," Daniel said, without turning from the view screen. Lieutenant Maria Santos looked up from her console. She was young for her rank, barely 30, but she had earned her position through skill and dedication rather than age. Her fingers moved across the holographic interface with practiced ease as she pulled up the latest information. "All 14 shadow stations are online and reporting normal operations," she said. "The Andromeda relay completed its final calibration sequence 6 hours ago. We now have instantaneous communication across all hidden sectors." Danielle nodded slowly. The Andromeda Relay had taken 3 years to build in complete secrecy. It used principles of quantum entanglement that human scientists had only begun to understand a decade ago. Now it allowed messages to travel across thousands of light years in the blink of an eye, connecting every hidden colony in a network that the Council could not detect or disrupt. "What about Director Cole?" Daniel asked. Maria checked her console again. "We received confirmation from the director 20 minutes ago. Project Seedling is complete. All colonists are in place. All infrastructure is operational. Project Seedling. Such a simple name for such an enormous undertaking." Daniel remembered the early days, when the project had existed only as a desperate idea scribbled on napkins during late-night meetings. The intelligence reports had made it clear that the Council was growing afraid of humanity. The whispers at diplomatic functions had confirmed that something was being planned. And so a small group of military officers, scientists, and government officials had come together to ask a simple question. What if the worst happened? The answer was Project Seedling. If the Council ever turned against humanity, if they ever tried to contain or destroy the human species, there needed to be a backup plan. There needed to be colonies hidden so far away and so well concealed that no alien power could ever find them. There needed to be enough humans scattered across enough worlds to ensure that the species would survive no matter what. "How many?" Daniel asked quietly. 17 million colonists across 42 hidden systems, Maria answered. Every colony is fully self-sustaining. They have food production, medical facilities, manufacturing capability, and defensive systems. Even if Earth and every known colony were destroyed tomorrow, humanity would continue. Daniel let out a slow breath. 17 million people, 42 worlds. An entire civilization built in the shadows while the rest of the galaxy looked the other way. It was the greatest secret in human history. Now it was about to be revealed. The door to the bridge hissed open, and Dr. Linda Park entered. She was small and slight, with black hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and glasses that she refused to replace with corrective surgery. Guess she said they helped her think. In her hands, she clutched a tablet computer like it was a sacred artifact. In some ways, it was. Linda Park was the chief architect of the displacement drive, the technology that had made all of this possible. "We are receiving transmissions from Earth," she said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes betrayed her worry. "The Council fleet has arrived in the Sol system. 47 warships from 6 different species. They are demanding immediate surrender." Daniel turned to face her. "Expected response time? Ambassador Price has already delivered our answer." Linda allowed herself a small smile, despite the gravity of the situation. She told them to count our colonies again. A soft ripple of grim amusement passed through the bridge crew. They all knew what the Council would find when they tried to take inventory of human holdings. The official records showed 23 colony worlds, home to roughly 2 billion people. That was what the Council expected to find. That was what they had prepared to contain. They had no idea about the other 42 worlds. They had no idea about the 17 million colonists living beyond their reach. They had no idea about the fleet of ships that could appear and disappear without warning, moving through space in ways that defied everything the galaxy knew about physics. "Show me," Daniel said. Linda walked to the main display console and connected her tablet. The view screen shifted from the streaming star field to a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Blue dots marked the known human colonies clustered together in a small region of the outer spiral arm. Then, one by one, green dots began to appear. They were scattered across the galaxy in a seemingly random pattern, some of them located in regions that the Council had classified as uninhabitable or unreachable. "This is us," Linda said. "This is what humanity has become while the Council was busy being afraid of us." Daniel studied the map in silence. Each green dot represented years of work, thousands of lives, and countless sacrifices. Men and women had left behind everything they knew to travel to distant stars and build new homes in secret. They had done it knowing that they might never see Earth again, knowing that they might never be able to contact their families, knowing that they were giving up their old lives for the chance to ensure that humanity would survive. "The displacement drive is the key to everything," Linda continued. "The Council still does not understand how it works. They think we need months to travel between systems. They have no idea that we can move a ship from one anchor point to another in less than a second. By the time they detect our arrival, we are already gone. Maria spoke up from her station. Commander, we are receiving a priority signal from Director Cole. He is requesting to address the senior staff. Put him through. Daniel ordered. The map disappeared and was replaced by the face of Samuel Cole. He was an older man with white hair and a neatly trimmed beard, his eyes sharp and alert despite his age. He had served as Director of Human External Operations for 15 years, a position that most people did not even know existed. His job was to prepare for the unthinkable, and now the unthinkable had arrived. Commander Hayes, Samuel said, I trust you have been briefed on the situation at Earth. I have, Director. The Council fleet is demanding surrender. Yes, and in approximately 6 hours, they will begin the process of dismantling our colonies. They will relocate our people back to Earth. They will destroy our ships and our stations. They believe this will take several weeks. Samuel paused and something like a smile crossed his weathered face. They are in for quite a surprise. Daniel felt his own lips twitch upward. What are your orders, sir? Send word to all shadow stations, Samuel said. Phase 2 begins now. It is time to show the Galactic Council what humanity does when backed into a corner. It is time to show them that we do not surrender. We do not accept extinction. We survive, we adapt, and we overcome. And when someone tries to destroy us, we make them regret it. The transmission ended. Daniel turned to face his crew, seeing the determination in their eyes, the readiness to act after so many years of waiting and preparing. You're the director, he said. Send the signal. Phase 2 is a go. Let us show them what it means to be human. High Arbiter Zethel had not slept in 3 days. His pale blue skin had taken on a grayish tint from exhaustion, and his ancient eyes were bloodshot from staring at report after report that made no sense. He sat alone in his private chambers on Vesser Prime, surrounded by holographic displays that showed data he did not want to believe. The door chimed, and he waved his hand to grant entry. Admiral Vexenar of the Morthene Empire walked in, his massive gray-plated body barely fitting through the doorway. Behind him came Counselor Thren of the Velthari Dominion, his segmented eyes darting nervously around the room. Tell me you have good news? Zethel said wearily. Vexenar and Thren exchanged a look that told the High Arbiter everything he needed to know. The fleet at Sol has completed its initial assessment, Vexenar rumbled. The humans are not resisting. They are allowing us to inventory their colonies without interference. Then what is the problem? Thren stepped forward, his insectoid limbs clicking against the floor. The problem is the numbers, High Arbiter. They do not match. They do not match at all. He activated a display showing the official records of human colonial holdings. 23 worlds. 2 billion colonists. A fleet of approximately 400 ships. These were the figures the Council had used to plan their containment operation. These were the figures that had made them confident they could control the human threat. Our scouts have now visited every known human colony, Thren continued. The populations are correct. The infrastructure is as expected. But we have discovered something disturbing. What? Zethal demanded. References, Thren said. Communications logs. Shipping manifests. Supply orders. All of them mention locations that do not exist in any of our records. All of them refer to ships we have never seen and stations we have never detected. Vexenar stepped closer to the display. We intercepted a transmission from one of their cargo vessels. It was sending a routine status report to something called Shadow Station 7. We traced the signal, but found nothing. The destination point is an empty space, far from any star system. Zethel felt a cold knot forming in his stomach. What are you telling me? We are telling you that the humans have been lying to us, Thren said. For years, perhaps decades. They have hidden colonies we know nothing about. They have ships we cannot track. They have built something in secret, right under our noses, and we have no idea how large it is. The High Arbiter rose from his seat and walked to the window. Beyond the glass, the capital city of Vesser Prime spread out in all directions, its towers gleaming in the light of the twin suns. Millions of his people lived in those towers, trusting that the Council would keep them safe. Billions more lived on worlds throughout the Galactic Council's territory. All of them were depending on him to make the right decisions. "Find them," he said quietly. "Whatever they have built, wherever they have hidden, find them." "You're trying," Vexenar said. "But there is another problem." Before the Admiral could explain, the alarms began to wail. Red lights flashed throughout the chamber. Emergency protocols activated across the entire Council complex. Zethal spun around to see his personal display changing, showing the space around Zessar Prime itself. 7 ships had appeared in orbit. They had not approached through normal space. They had not been detected by any sensor network. They had simply materialized out of nothing, as if they had stepped through an invisible door in the fabric of reality. "What are those?" Zethal breathed. The ships were unlike anything in the Council's database. They were sleek and angular, built with a design philosophy that seemed almost alien compared to the bulky warships favored by most galactic powers. But they were not warships at all. Their hulls were covered with antenna arrays and broadcasting equipment. They were communications vessels, built to send and receive signals across vast distances. A new voice filled the chamber, calm and measured, speaking through every communication channel on the planet simultaneously. "Members of the Galactic Council. This is Director Samuel Cole of the Human External Operations Division. I hope I have your attention." Zethal gripped the edge of his desk so hard that his knuckles turned white. Beside him, Thren and Vexenar stood frozen in shock. 3 days ago, you voted to outlaw humanity," Samuel continued. "You declared our species a threat. You sent your fleets to contain us, to dismantle our colonies, to force us back to our homeworld, where we would slowly starve and die. You did this because you were afraid of what we might become." The holographic display in the chamber flickered and changed. A map of the galaxy appeared, showing the territory claimed by the Council and its member species. Then, one by one, new points of light began to appear. They spread across the map like stars being born, dozens of them, scattered in regions far beyond Council space. "You were right to be afraid," Samuel said, "but you were wrong about one very important thing. You thought you knew where we were. You thought you understood the extent of our reach. You were mistaken." Zethal stared at the map in horror. Each point of light represented a human presence, a colony or station or outpost that the Council had never known about. There were more than 40 of them, hidden in systems that had been classified as uninhabitable, unreachable, or simply not worth exploring. "We have been preparing for this day for over 10 years, Samuel continued. "When your spies began whispering about containment, we started building. When your counselors began debating our fate, we were already moving our people to safety. When you finally cast your votes 3 days ago, we had 17 million colonists living beyond your reach." Admiral Vexenar found his voice at last. "This is impossible. The distances alone would take decades to travel." As if in answer, the 7 ships in orbit vanished. One moment they were there, solid and real and broadcasting across every frequency. The next moment, the space where they had been was empty. Then, before anyone could react, they reappeared in a different position, on the opposite side of the planet. "Our displacement drive allows instantaneous travel between anchor points," Samuel explained. "We do not need months or years to move between stars. We can be anywhere we want, whenever we want. Your fleets cannot catch us. Your weapons cannot target us. By the time your sensors detect our presence, we are already gone." Thren let out a sound that might have been a whimper. His grand plan, his decade-long campaign to eliminate the human threat, was crumbling before his eyes. "We are not here to declare war," Samuel said. "We could have attacked your worlds. We could have destroyed your fleets while they sat helpless in our home system. We chose not to. We are not monsters, despite what you have decided to believe about us." The map on the display changed again, zooming in on one of the hidden human colonies. It showed a thriving world, with cities and farms and forests, with children playing in parks, and ships coming and going from busy spaceports. It showed a civilization that had been built in secret, a future that the Council had tried to prevent. "We are here to deliver a message," Samuel said. "You cannot contain us. You cannot destroy us. You cannot make us disappear. We are already everywhere, and we are not going away. So now we have a choice to make, all of us together. We can continue down this path of fear and hatred and see where it leads. Or we can try something different." The transmission paused. In the silence, Zethel could hear his own heart's beating. "We would like to renegotiate," Samuel said finally. "We will be in touch." The ships in orbit vanished one last time, leaving nothing behind but the fading echoes of their message in a galaxy that would never be the same. The abandoned station hung in the darkness of the Vega cluster like a forgotten skeleton. It had once belonged to a mining corporation that had gone bankrupt centuries ago. And now its empty corridors and silent chambers served as neutral ground for a meeting that would determine the fate of billions. Catherine Price stepped off the shuttle and onto the station's main docking platform. The air was cold and stale, recycled by ancient systems that groaned with every breath they produced. Behind her came Commander Daniel Hayes, dressed in his formal military uniform, and Dr. Linda Park, carrying her ever-present tablet computer. They walked in silence through the dimly lit corridors until they reached the central conference chamber. The council delegation was already waiting for them. High Arbiter Zethel sat at the head of a long metal table, his crystalline staff resting against his chair. To his right was Counselor Thren, his segmented eyes fixed on the humans with undisguised hatred. To his left was Admiral Vexenar, his massive form squeezed uncomfortably into a seat designed for smaller species. Behind them stood a row of guards from 3 different species, their weapons holstered but their hands ready. Catherine took her seat across from Zethal without waiting for an invitation. Daniel and Linda positioned themselves on either side of her, their expressions calm and unreadable. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The only sound was the distant hum of the station's failing power systems and the soft click of Thren's limbs against the table surface. "You deceived us," Thren finally hissed. "For years, you smiled at us across negotiating tables. You traded with us. You signed treaties with us. And the whole time, you were building your secret empire behind our backs." Catherine met his gaze without flinching. "We prepared for survival. There is a difference." "There is no difference," Thren snapped. "Deception is deception. You made fools of us all." "We made ourselves ready," Catherine corrected. "Your own intelligence agencies have been predicting our elimination for decades. We have seen the reports. We know what your analysts have been saying about humanity behind closed doors. Did you really think we would sit quietly and wait for you to destroy us?" Admiral Vexenar leaned forward, his gray plates grinding together as he moved. "You could have come to us. You could have addressed our concerns through proper diplomatic channels." Daniel let out a short laugh that held no humor. "We tried that, Admiral. For 30 years, we tried that. Every time we raised the issue, we were told that our fears were unfounded. Every time we asked for guarantees of our safety, we were given empty promises. And every year, the whispers grew louder and the plans grew more detailed." Zethal raised a hand for silence. His ancient face was weary, carrying the weight of decisions that had led to this moment. "What is done is done. We cannot change the past. The question now is what happens next." "That depends entirely on you," Catherine said. "We have made our position clear. We will not be contained. We will not be eliminated. We will not allow our species to be slowly strangled into extinction on a single quarantined world. Those options are no longer available to you. Then what do you want?" Zethal asked. Catherine pulled a small device from her pocket and placed it on the table. A holographic document appeared above it, floating in the air where everyone could read it. "Full recognition of human sovereignty over all systems we currently occupy, both the known colonies and the hidden ones. A permanent seat on the Galactic Council with full voting rights, and a formal apology broadcast to every species in known space, acknowledging that the vote to outlaw humanity was based on fear rather than evidence." Thren made a sound of disgust. "Impossible. You are criminals. Outlaws. The vote was legitimate." "The vote was based on projections of what we might do," Catherine said calmly. Not on anything we actually did. You condemned our entire species for the crime of being too successful, too adaptable, too determined to survive. That is not justice. That is prejudice. Vexenar shook his massive head. Even if we wanted to grant your demands, the other council members would never agree. The fear runs too deep. Too many species have convinced themselves that humanity is a threat that must be eliminated. Linda spoke up for the first time, her quiet voice cutting through the tension. Perhaps we can help with that. She activated her tablet and connected it to the station's display systems. A new holographic image appeared above the table, showing complex molecular diagrams and medical data. This is a cure for Velthary cellular degeneration, she said. Thren's entire body went rigid. His species had been suffering from a genetic disease for centuries, a slow breakdown of their cellular structure that shortened their lifespans and caused tremendous suffering. Every attempt to find a cure had failed. It was the greatest tragedy his people had ever known. You are lying, he whispered. I am not, Linda said. She changed the display to show a different set of data. And this is a solution to the Cassian food crisis. Their agricultural worlds have been failing for decades due to soil degradation. This treatment can restore their farmland within a single growing season. The display changed again. This is clean energy technology that could power the Forden homeworld for 10,000 years without any environmental damage. This is a water purification system that could save the dying oceans of Gelen Prime. This is medical technology that could extend the lifespan of every MWS species in the Council by an average of 40. Percentzell stared at the data scrolling across the display. You developed all of this while preparing for war against us. We developed all of this because it is who we are, Catherine answered. Humanity does not just survive. We create. We build. We solve problems. When we found ourselves alone and afraid, facing enemies on every side, we did not simply prepare weapons. We prepared gifts. She leaned forward across the table. We could have shared these discoveries years ago. We wanted to. Our scientists were eager to collaborate with your researchers, to combine our knowledge and push the boundaries of what was possible. But you made us afraid. You made us believe that any sign of advancement would be seen as a threat. So we kept our discoveries hidden, just as we kept our colonies hidden. Daniel spoke again, his voice hard. You feared what we might become. You never stopped to ask what we might contribute. You saw us as parasites, as a disease to be contained. You never considered that we might be the best thing that ever happened to this galaxy. The chamber fell silent. Thren was still staring at the medical data, his segmented eyes moving rapidly as he processed the implications. A cure for his people's greatest affliction, developed by the species he had spent a decade trying to destroy. Why show us this now? Vexenar asked slowly. You could have kept these secrets. You could have used them as weapons, offering them only in exchange for our complete surrender. Catherine shook her head. That is not who we are, Admiral. We do not want to conquer you. We do not want to rule over you. We just want to live, to grow, to explore the stars alongside you, rather than in spite of you. We want to be partners, not enemies. She gestured at the data still floating above the table. This is what humanity offers the galaxy. Not war, not domination, but solutions to problems you thought were unsolvable, cures for diseases you thought were incurable. Technologies that could transform every world in council space. Zethel looked at his fellow counselors, seeing the conflict in their faces. Fear and pride warred with hope and pragmatism. Everything they had believed about humanity was being challenged by the evidence floating before their eyes. We need time to consider, the High Arbiter said finally. This is not a decision that can be made quickly. Catherine nodded and rose from her seat. Take all the time you need. We have waited this long. We can wait a little longer. She turned and walked toward the door, Daniel and Linda falling into step beside her. At the threshold, she paused and looked back over her shoulder. But remember one thing, she said. We are offering you our hand in friendship. It would be wise to take it, because the alternative benefits no one and costs everyone everything. Then she was gone, leaving the council members alone with their thoughts and the ghost of a future they had never imagined. 6 months had passed since the meeting at the abandoned station in the Vega cluster. 6 months of arguments and debates, of angry speeches and quiet negotiations, of old fears slowly giving way to new possibilities. It had not been easy. Nothing worth doing ever was. The signing ceremony took place in the great chamber of the Galactic Council, the same room where humanity had been condemned to extinction half a year before. But today the chamber looked different. The harsh lighting had been softened. The rigid semicircle of seats had been rearranged into a more welcoming shape. And at the center of it all, on a platform that had once held only accusers, stood representatives from 13 species instead of 12. Catherine Price walked to the podium with steady steps. She wore the formal robes of a council ambassador, dark blue with silver trim, the first human ever to hold such a position. Behind her sat the rest of the human delegation, including Commander Daniel Hayes, now promoted to Admiral, and Dr. Linda Park, who had been awarded the Council's highest scientific honor for her contributions to galactic medicine. High Arbiter Zethel rose from his seat and approached the podium from the other side. He moved slowly, his ancient body showing the strain of recent months. But his eyes were clear, and his voice was strong. "We gather today to correct a great wrong," he announced. 6 months ago, this council voted to outlaw humanity. We acted out of fear, not wisdom. We chose suspicion over trust, isolation over cooperation. We were wrong. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Several representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Admitting error did not come easily to beings who had spent their lives wielding power. The humans could have responded to our aggression with aggression of their own, Zethal continued. They had the means. They had the opportunity. Instead, they chose a different path. They offered us their hand in friendship, even after we had tried to close ours around their throats. He turned to face Catherine directly. "Ambassador Price, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I offer humanity our sincere apology. We misjudged you. We underestimated you. And we nearly destroyed any chance of the partnership that could benefit us all." Catherine inclined her head in acknowledgement. "High Arbiter, humanity accepts your apology. We hold no grudge against the Council or its member species. We understand that fear is a powerful force and that it can drive even wise beings to make unwise choices. What matters now is not the past, but the future we build together." She stepped forward and placed her hand on the treaty document that lay on the podium between them. It was a thick stack of pages representing months of careful negotiation, but its core principles were simple. Humanity would be recognized as a sovereign power with full rights and responsibilities. The hidden colonies would be officially acknowledged and protected under galactic law. A human representative would hold a permanent seat on the council. And in return, humanity would share its technological advances freely with all species who wished to benefit from them. "I sign this treaty not just for the humans alive today," Catherine said, "but for all the generations that will come after us. May they live in a galaxy where species work together instead of against each other. May they never know the fear that we have known." She picked up the ceremonial pen and added her signature to the document. Zethal did the same. One by one, the representatives of the other 11 species came forward to add their marks, until the treaty bore the seal of every member of the Galactic Council. When it was done, the chamber erupted in applause. It was hesitant at first, uncertain, but it grew stronger as the moment sank in. History had been made. The galaxy had changed. In the weeks that followed, the changes began to spread. Human ships appeared openly in ports that had once been forbidden to them. Human scientists worked alongside researchers from a dozen different species, sharing knowledge and learning new things in return. Human colonies emerged from the shadows, their populations finally free to trade and travel and connect with the wider galaxy. Admiral Daniel Hayes stood on the observation deck of his new flagship. Watching a fleet of human and alien vessels conduct joint training exercises, the ships moved in perfect formation, their crews working together as if they had been doing so for years instead of weeks. It was a sight he had never expected to see in his lifetime. Captain Maria Santos stood beside him, studying the tactical display with professional interest. She had earned her promotion through years of dedicated service. Now she commanded her own vessel in the combined fleet. "Think it will last?" she asked, without looking away from the display. Daniel considered the question carefully. He had spent too many years preparing for the worst to believe icily in the best. Trust, once broken, takes generations to rebuild. Old fears do not disappear overnight. There would be setbacks and disappointments, moments when the alliance seemed ready to crumble. "I think it has a chance," he said finally. "That is more than we had before, and if they turn on us again—" He allowed himself a small smile. "Then we will be ready. We always are." Far across the galaxy, on a world that had been terraformed by human engineers and settled by colonists from 3 different species, a different kind of scene was unfolding. A park had been built in the center of the largest city, filled with trees and flowers from a dozen different worlds. Fountains sprayed water in patterns that caught the light of the alien sun, and paths wound between gardens where children played. A human girl named Emma sat on a bench near the central fountain. She was 8 years old, with brown hair tied in braids and a gap-toothed smile that appeared whenever something delighted her. Beside her sat a Velthari youngling named Keth, a small insectoid form perched carefully on the bench to avoid falling off. They were supposed to be enemies. Their species had nearly gone to war. But Emma and Keth knew nothing of that history. To them, the galaxy was simply home, vast and mysterious and full of wonders waiting to be discovered. "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Emma asked. Keth's segmented eyes glittered in the sunlight. "A star pilot. I want to visit every world in the galaxy." "Me too," Emma said. "Maybe we can explore together." "I would like that," Keth agreed. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the other children play and the adults walk past on their way to important business. A human father pushed a stroller while chatting with a Morthine colleague. A group of Cassian students laughed at something a human teacher had said. A Gellan merchant haggled good-naturedly with a human customer over the price of exotic fruit. This was the future that Catherine Price had fought for. This was the dream that director Samuel Cole had worked toward in secret for so many years. This was what Daniel Hayes and Maria Santos and Linda Park and all the others had sacrificed so much to protect. Not victory, not dominance. Just the simple, precious chance for different beings to live alongside each other in peace. The sun began to set over the park, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple that existed on no other world in the galaxy. Emma and Keth watched it together, 2 children from species that had nearly destroyed each other, now sitting side by side as friends. Perhaps that was humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy. Not their technology or their determination or their stubborn refusal to die. Perhaps it was simply this: the irrational, unshakable belief that tomorrow could be better than today, and that even the worst enemies could become the best of friends. The stars came out one by one as darkness fell. Somewhere among them, human ships traveled freely through space that had once been forbidden to them. Somewhere among them, hidden colonies had become open cities. Somewhere among them, species that had been outlawed now walked as equals among the great powers of the galaxy. Humanity had survived. Humanity had overcome. And now, at last, humanity had found its place among the stars. The story was far from over. There would be new challenges and new dangers, new enemies and new friends. But that is a tale for another time. For now, it was enough to sit in a park on an alien world, watching the stars come out and knowing that the future was bright